Hello. So welcome to quick demonstration on the payment reference on an ABI file. So this can be like a common requirement, or you may be asking where this information are coming from. Meaning when you generate an ABI file, especially for a payment of suppliers in Australia, then you would probably be asking where this reference number is coming from when that ABA file is being generated. All right, so yep, the requirement in here, as I said earlier, is just to determine the source of the reference, or how do we populate the reference when an ABA is generated. So we'll go through different assumptions, supply records as well. Primarily, the focus will be on the reference fields, and I have at least here 6 scenarios just for us to see what the value of the reference on the different ABA files, and a bonus in here as well on smart events, and I'll just explain what that will be later on. All right, so we have different assumptions here. So the first one is that we know that for a bank account, the enable bank file payments has to be turned on just for us to be able to generate ABA for the payment of the suppliers. And on the suppliers, select an option to enable service as enable bank file payments. So when this is enabled, we know that you can define the different bank file related fields for the supplier to be paid by ABA. So you have the BSB number in there, the minimum, you have account number, and of course you have the reference as what I mentioned here as well, that the reference in the different scenarios are referring to A and J company, and the pay transactions for the different scenarios will be direct AP purchase invoice, and we have and the payment is being done through accounts payable or pay AP purchase invoices, right? And payment request method, when you go through the payment screen and you have an option, you have at least 4 options, but in this case, we'll just be dealing with either generate one request per AP purchase invoice, which means it's like aggregating all the purchase invoices per supplier, or sorry, generate one invoice, meaning if there's you'll be generating a purchase request exclusive or for each AP purchase invoice being paid. But we have here as well, which is the merge requests into one per supplier, which means that it will collate, it will add up all the AP purchase invoices basically that you're going to pay for a particular supplier, and just get one line for it, aggregating everything per supplier. So that's just that option in there, and we will see the impact later on. All right. And yep, and the ABA or bank files generated are not uploaded in the bank portal. It's not being tested. Yep, not being tested at all during the demonstration. And we have the bank files are viewed in Notepad just for us to see what we are referring to. And that will be the screenshots that you will be seeing later on, that it's a bank file, but it's viewed as Notepad. So we'll be able to see the impact. Right. Okay. So let's have a look at the supplier records first. So I have used 6 suppliers plus 1 later on, as what you will see here, the reference numbers as defined on the supplier records, particularly on the bank file tab in there. So once you've enabled the bank file payments, you have all these fields available, for you to define, that will be used later on for processing the ABA file. And you have here the reference as well. You can see it just refers to A&J company. All right, so let's keep that in mind across all those 6 suppliers, plus one later on is using A&J company, right, as the reference. All right, so let's look at the first scenario in here. So the first scenario is that you have one AP purchase invoice, you have one invoice reference. That's obvious. So one invoice reference, so that's one reference on the AP purchase invoice, and one payment request being generated. All right. So this is the purchase invoice. This is just the view mode of the purchase invoice in there. So as what you can see, you have here the AP purchase invoice called RefNo1, and it's just a list view, so it's easier for us to see. You have the reference number of that defined as RefNo1 PINV. All right. So if we make a payment, this is the payment request method. We have generated one request per AP purchase invoice. All right. And I have that invoice being selected. So when you process the payment, gone through the process of, pay now in there under cash management, you generate the bank file. And this is the bank file that will be generated when viewed in a notepad. So you will see in here the reference number is the one coming from the invoice number, right? So ultimately, if the reference number is being filled out, then it will just flow across to the bank file, right? So when you process this payment, the supplier will be looking into this reference on their bank statement. So this is the one that will be appearing on their bank statement for reconciliation. All right. So essentially, this is coming from the AP purchase invoice number. But let's have a look at other scenarios in here. So the other one is you have multiple AP purchase invoices, but you have the same invoice reference, but you have to merge, right? So essentially what we are saying in here that, okay, for this particular supplier, you have at least 2 AP purchase invoices that you're about to pay, and those 2 AP purchase invoices have the same reference number, right? If that's the case, when processed through merged request into one supplier, which means that all of these, you only have one purchase request for these, even if there are 2 AP purchase invoices being paid. So this will be merged all together. So there will be a total amount to be paid for this particular supplier, which is for 200, right? And what will happen is that we'll only be seeing one line because it's being merged. So if you look at the ABA file, you have that in here as one line for that supplier, and the amount would be for 200, for $200 in here. So we said, because we said merge, and since they have the same reference number, and that same reference number is being um, taken from the AP purchase invoices. I- Again, if you're multiplying, or if we are extracting or paying the same or multiple AP purchase invoice and merge the same, meaning there's only one purchase request for that supplier because you merge them and they have the same reference number, then that reference number will be used in the bank file. That's what you can see here. All right. But let's have a look at this scenario. So we have multiple AP purchase invoices, similar to what we had earlier. You have the same reference number or generate, but you have generate each request. So this would behave the same way as well, because what we're saying in here is that it these 2 invoices, right, they have the same reference numbers, but what we're saying is that generate one request for per AP purchase invoice, then it will just get the information basically from the AP purchase invoice, right? That's what you can see here, that these are the reference numbers, reference really from the AP purchase invoice. The only difference though is that you have 2 lines It's all because we have stated that we will be generating separate purchase requests per AP invoice. All right. Now, if we look at this scenario wherein we have multiple AP purchase invoices, but different invoice references, merge requests, right? So what will happen then? So what we're saying is that, okay, for this supplier, we have at least two AP purchase invoices that we are about to pay. And that's why you can see here, they have different reference numbers. If the option to pay or the payment request method is a merge request into one supplier, what will happen to the reference number on the ABA file itself? All right. Okay. So we said merge request into one supplier. So that's why you'll only see one line in here. Again, this will be the aggregate of the two purchase invoices. But you will notice in here that the reference is A&J Company. So what the system does is that if those AP reference numbers are different and you merge them for one supplier, and another option as well is contact, if they have the same contact for the supplier, right? Then since it wouldn't know which one to use, so it would actually get it from or source it from the reference field on the supplier record. That's why you will see here A&J Company. So this is the one that is being defined on the supplier record. All right. So hope that makes sense. Scenario 5. So we have multiple AP purchase invoices here, different invoice references, generate each request. So I just would like to show this as well, but this should be, I believe, should be straightforward. So similar as what we've seen from the previous scenario, we have for one supplier, you have two AP purchase invoices here, but we have different reference numbers. But payment request method is generate one request per AP purchase invoice. So meaning you'll be seeing two lines upon payment, right? Upon generation of payment requests. So if that's the case, then what will happen is that since we'll be generating one request per AP purchase invoice, it will just respect the reference numbers that you have defined on the AP purchase invoice because those are separate. So if these are merged, then it will be getting from the supply record. But since you said generate request per AP invoice, okay, so we will be displaying per line. So every line here corresponds to the AP purchase invoice being paid, and since it will just they will just get definitely the reference number from the corresponding AP purchase invoice. All right, so that's why we'll see here. This is for $100. You have $100 here as well for same supplier, and just a different reference defined on AP purchase invoices. All right, but what will happen now if we have one AP purchase invoice, but we have a blank invoice reference, right? And just make it one payment request. All right, this is just the view mode again of that AP purchase invoice. And you will see here that there's no reference number on that AP purchase invoice. And in this case, we just merge request into one supplier or even generate request per AP purchase invoice. Since it's blank, then the information will be sourced from the supply record. And we know, and we've seen as well earlier, that the reference for the supplier is A&J Company too. So that's why it's being shown. All right, so hopefully that gives you context on where the reference number is coming from. So essentially, the reference number will be, the general rule is that reference number will be coming from the AP purchase invoice. Then if it's blank, then it will be getting from the supply record. And if we have different reference numbers on AP purchase invoices and you merge them into one payment request, which means that just the aggregate amount will be paid, will be shown rather on the ABA. Then since those reference numbers are different, then we have to have a common ground, which is the reference on the supplier record itself. Right, but then again, if we have different reference numbers and you generate purchase request separately, which means that you would like to see those different AP purchase invoices on the bank file itself, then it will just respect the reference number on the AP purchase invoice. If one is blank, then it will be getting from the supplier record. All right. So, okay. So we have this special, requirement wherein, what if you would like to see the supplier, the actual invoice number that the payment is for. All right. So we know earlier that all the reference numbers are basically coming from the AP purchase invoice. All right. And if it's blank or if it's merged with different, then it will be getting from the supplier records. But if it is a requirement for you that the reference field on the AP purchase invoice should be filled out, and maybe you would like to copy, basically, right, the AP purchase invoice numbers to the reference number on the same transaction, right? So that's why when you generate the invoice or you generate the APA file, then you will still see that invoice number on the reference, and that's what your supplier will be able to see. So you can have like a smart event to copy, that AP purchase invoice number to the reference number. So you have here the definitions of smart events. So it's being deployed on the AP purchase invoices, but we mentioned we'll be dealing with AP purchase invoice number, or AP purchase invoice. And we have the action here as API, or yep, you may want to put it on add or on set, or maybe just on add, right? Meaning on create, and just get the, and we have the condition wherein the doc number is empty, which means that the reference on the AP purchase number is empty because you may be using the reference number for other purposes. So there's no way for you to, maybe you don't want that to be overwritten anyways, right? So you can add a condition wherein this smart event will only execute if the reference number on the AP purchase invoice is empty. And this is the API itself, which means, yep, just get the record number. So the record ID rather, yep, just based on the record number. And the record ID is the AP purchase invoice number. So get it. So upon save, right? So get that value and populate the doc number. Doc number is the reference number of the same AP purchase invoice. All right, synchronous, just make it true. Just for it to be populated on the fly, right? As you save, then it's already executing, and it's up to you how you define the smart link ID in here. All right, so let's have a look at this into action, and just for us to see what's the impact like. All right. Let me just share my screen here. All right. Okay. So you already have that smart event in place there. And let me just create an AP purchase invoice. So let's create a purchase invoice and have it being paid as well. So we will see what's the impact on the ABA file. All right. So I think I have this supplier. Okay. Ref no, coming from smart event. All right. So reference number is coming from there. Okay, so notice this one here. I don't have that there, right? It's blank because we know that this will be used later on for um, when you payment when you process the ABA file, right? So we would like this to be copied there instead, right? And let's leave it as is, right? So you can either, populate it there, but you have the smart events as well. You don't need to worry about that. So, or maybe if you're actually like implementing it, that the reference number should always be an AP purchase invoice number, then you can just, remove that condition at a smart event that's validating that they should be empty for it to be filled out. But in our case, it has to be filled out for it, for this information to be copied there. All right. So just leave it like that. And let's have a look at other option in here. What else can I just make use of this inclusive tax in there? Fill out other details here. Department, I'll choose operations, location, I'll choose this one. Tax detail, I'll just have G11 or other acquisition. Yeah, let's just make it for $500. All right, so notice this one here, right? So again, if it is your company's policy that, since this field is being used in the ABA file, might as well just fill it out with the AP purchase invoice number. So if let me just get this, copy this first so I can look at it later. So click on post. And let's see what will happen here. All right. So yep. So you'll see in here, even I have this view anyways. I've customized my view just to display the relevant fields that I would like to show. So you have the AP purchase invoice number here, and you can see the reference number as well, right? So they're the same now, and which is good. So if you click on view, you will see in here that that has been copied across. Right, so let's process an ABA file for it, just for us to see what I mean, right? So if you have the reference number, which is actually coming from the invoice number, then let's see how it works. If I go to accounts payable, pay ABA purchase invoice here, and let me just narrow down the name of the supplier to this. Yes, I would like to create an ABA file. All right, and for that bank account as well, yeah, I only have one there, right? So, okay. So from here, I'll just pay now. So with the payment request method here, let me just select, let's say, generate. I only have one anyways, right? So it doesn't matter. So let me just select generate one request for AP and pay now. All right. So one payment request has been generated. Then I can proceed in order to create the ABA file. So if I go to cash management, bank file generation, and I'll just have to sort the dates. And I have this, which is today's date. And for that payee, then I just click on generate. All right. And let's have a look. What's the file being generated? So if I go to cash management, all payment files, and we have bank payment files there. All right. So at the moment it's generating, which is good. And it may take a few seconds or a few minutes. Let me just have a look here. I'll just continue refreshing just to see if the state will be updated. All right. We're just trying to create the ABA file and just to see what's the impact like. It's taking some time. It's a demo instance anyways. There is some sort of delays there. But yep, just for us to see what how it looks like. And let me just go back and try to duplicate it and just open up again that AP purchase invoice. All right, so you have this one. You have the reference similar to AP purchase invoice number there. Okay. So yeah, just to reiterate, that smart event is just an add-on. It's up to you whether you want to use it, basically. But if you would like for your supplier to be able to know what the payment is for, and you might as well just get the invoice number into the reference number, so your supplier will be able to see this information, and it's easier for your supplier to apply the payment, right? But that would be, I have to make sure though that the payment request is being generated per AP purchase invoice just to make it unique, right? Otherwise, if you merge them into one supplier, then since they have different reference numbers, then you'll just be using A&J, that reference coming from the supplier record. In my case, it's A&J company, right? So, yep, it's up to you. But just giving you the option to make use of. So just would like to reiterate that this is the reference number being considered by the system at the moment, and there's no way for us to designate other information. And just to add to that as well, so if you're using reference number for any other reasons, you might as well make use of, let's say, description, just to house the reference number usually in here, just this one for just for ABA file basically. And you can of course create custom fields right on the ABA purchase invoice just to house other information that you would usually put on the reference number if you decide the reference number to store the AP purchase invoice number as well, because this field is the only one being validated right when you do the ABA file, just for reference purposes. All right, so let's go back to that screen for bank payment file if we have any luck there. Okay, perfect. So it's pending now, which is great, which means that, yep, so you can download the ABA file. So click on that one there under select column and click on download. All right, and I have here, let me just move this along. All right, okay, so look at this one here. So you will see here that the reference number is this one. Okay, let me just have a look, and yep, okay. So the reference number is RefNo Smart Event 1, and yep, this is what your supplier will be seeing in their bank statement, that amount, that payment amount from that company, right, is for this invoice number. All right, so yep, hopefully this one helps and was able to explain basically where the reference number is coming from on ABA file, and a bit of information that what you can do in order to copy the AP purchase invoice into reference number that will eventually be reflected again on the ABA file. Thank you.